hear me okay. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Special Libraries Association Student Group Talk, Prep for Success with our guest Tracy Maleeff. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We are honored to be hosting Tracy tonight. Tracy is a lawful librarian, the 2014 recipient of the Special Libraries Association Dow Jones Innovate Award. And Tracy, that was an inaugural award, correct?
Correct.
All right. And she's a regular contributor to the I Need a Library Job blog. She also tweets as Library Sherpa and has her own widely followed blog, librarysherpa.com. Last fall, Tracy graciously invited our group to co-host the at SLA Talk Twitter chat, Ask a Law Librarian. However, tonight she will be sharing the use of her tips on using social media and networking to jumpstart and refresh your career in special libraries. Before Tracy takes over, I just wanted to let you know that SJSU SLA is currently accepting nominations for a number of executive committee posts. So if you're interested in special libraries, if you are looking for leadership experience, or if you would like to make a difference on our virtual campus, please consider nominating yourself. I'm going to include a link to our page in the chat right now. And now that the housekeeping is done, without further ado, please welcome Tracy Maleeff.
Hey everyone. Yes, I'm Tracy Maleeff, and I'm thrilled to be here tonight talking with you all. What I want to do is, first let's go over the agenda. And I have to admit, this is a lazy person's agenda. I tried to put together an order in which to talk about everything. But the reality is a lot of this overlaps and intertwines. And, you know, I think to do it justice, I kind of want to bounce all over the place. So I thought, what better than a word cloud? And I threw in a bunch of words and topics that I want to cover. So in no particular order, and in different varying levels of repeating, we will address all these things. And as I mentioned to Grace and Basha earlier, you know, I have a lot to talk about. I have a lot to say, a lot of information I want to give you, but I also want to hear from you. So if there's, you know, things that you want to hear about, please, you know, ask questions in the chat. I'll be glad to address them. If I'm in the middle of a story or a topic or whatever, I'll be glad to get back to it. But I don't mind being interrupted. I also asked Basha and Grace to interrupt me as well if there was something they wanted me to talk about. So this is going to be really informal. I just want to kind of sit here and talk and just tell stories, but my stories have a point, and my stories have things in them that you should be listening for. So I want you to be active listening tonight. So with that, let's go. Hopefully some of you know the Talking Heads song, Once in a Lifetime. You may ask yourself, well, how did I get here? So why am I talking to you today? Why should you care about what I have to say? I wanted to spend a few minutes explaining how I got to where I am now, because again, with active listening, you'll hear things that I did or things that I went through that brought me to this specialized libraries career. So to explain the photo, that is the University of Pittsburgh mascot Rock, whom I affectionately call Kitty, just for no particular reason, because I think Rock is a weird name for a panther. So just, you know, the basics. I have an associate's degree from Penn State, a bachelor's degree from Temple, and then I have my MLIS from University of Pittsburgh. Currently, I am the Library Resources Manager at Duane Morris LLP. That is an AmLaw 100 firm, and my job is basically, in the simplest of terms, I am the acquisitions and collection development librarian for a firm of about 700 attorneys in 26 offices worldwide. So that means that I bounce back and forth from macro and micro. I make sure that, you know, an entire office is not only up to date with the subscriptions, but that the content is what the attorneys need, you know, with their practice. And then I also do individual attorney needs. Today, for example, I had an attorney reach out to me and said, I need to get better at Twitter. I'm like, well, you came to the right person. So I do things, you know, beyond traditional, quote unquote, librarianship. Like I said, I help the attorneys with social media and find things like that. So it's a lot of people. The budget I deal with is about like $6 million or so. It's a lot of, a lot of money that I look after. I guess my crowning achievement, so to speak, at the firm is I instituted a cost savings initiative that, when spread out over a 5-year period, wound up saving the firm $2 million. So I was able to in essence, to shave $2 million off of our budget. And that's the kind of skills that you want. I didn't learn those in library school, but I'm going to tell you now, if I could go back and tell my library school me, take budgeting classes, take some sort of finance or even accounting, take something to become more familiar with money, because you're going to need to deal with it. All the stuff that I learned, I just kind of picked up from just life and whatnot. But again, since you're still in school, I want to tell you, look at some finance classes, maybe not necessarily accounting, but anything to do, to help you with money management. I've been an active member of SLA since 2006, holding many leadership positions. I'm currently the chair of the 2015 Annual Conference Advisory Council, which means my job is to get all of you to go to the annual conference in Boston next month. But I realize at this point it might be a little too late for you to commit to that. But 2016 conference will be in Philadelphia, so my local peeps here in the chat room, please attend the conference next year. I'm also the chair of the Online Content Advisory Council, which basically means I'm the social media manager for SLA. That's kind of loosely translated. But I do a lot with SLA. I was also chair of the legal division in 2012. And lastly, I am Library Sherpa, and you know what? I will tell the story real quick. Before we were recording, I told the story. The reason Library Sherpa came about is when I was at my first firm, my boss did not encourage me to use the firm's name in anything that I was writing or just anywhere, and she was even weird about me using my real name, and it was just for reasons that didn't make sense, quite frankly. So I was really stuck. I wanted to publish. I wanted to, I wanted to be on Twitter back then was just starting, but I wanted to basically publish. I wanted to blog and I wanted to publish articles. So like most things, necessity is the mother of invention. And I thought, well, there's nothing against me getting an alias, a pseudonym. So I tried to think of something clever to tie into our profession, and I thought of Library Sherpa and the tagline of your guide up a mountain of information, because I wanted to, use it as an homage to, the Sherpa race, where they're guides, they're leaders, they're helpers, and again, skills that are very much akin to what we do as professionals. So that's how that came about. And the reason why I wanted to talk about I'm going to talk a little bit more about my past, because some of you may be in the same situation, whether you're listening live or on the recording. You may be familiar with the Robert Frost poem, The Road Not Taken. The first two and the last two lines are, two roads diverged in yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. For me, I definitely took the road less traveled by. What I didn't mention yet was that before I got my degrees, I was a travel agent. I spent most of my 20s as a travel agent, and traveling for free or cheap and working was a lot more attractive than being in school. But what happened is, I saw in hindsight, is that the skills that I learned being a travel agent really were transferable into the library world. Things like customer service, a reference interview, working under time constraints, learning new technology. So what I want you guys to do right now is think about the jobs that you've had in the past, even if it was maybe like a high school job or something that you currently have. What skills do you have or do you utilize that are transferable into the library or information professional world? If it's retail, fast food, or an office environment, think about the things that you've honed and how they complement your MLIS degree. this is important because later when we get into, you know, job hunting and things like that and interviewing, you know, you may feel self-conscious that you might not have a lot of experience. Well, I think you have more experience than you realize. So I want you to, you know, to try to think about that. So again, for me, it was, you know, becoming a librarian was less of a scary prospect because I realized, okay, it's just, you know, the skills of being a travel agent but applied differently. So I hope that's helpful for some of you because I know that some people are very anxious that they, you know, they graduate from library school and they feel like they're completely green and don't have any experience, but I think, you know, you have skills. So, so think about that. So just, again, another point that I wanted to mention is, so I, you know, on and off throughout my 20s worked on this associate's degree, finally graduated in '99, and I was a travel agent. So what I did, though, is that I made sure I paid attention to the trade magazines and the trade papers and, you know, paid attention to the industry, which, you know, for us it would be, you know, now would be library and information science, but, you know, you really need to pay attention to your profession, to your industry. So I started to see, you know, what they said, the writing on the wall, and I started to see things decline. So I enrolled at Temple, and I was working and, you know, studying for this bachelor's degree, and I finally quit my travel agent job, and I just said, you know what, I'm just going to study full time because I really think this industry isn't going anywhere. That was August of 2001, and, you know, September 2001 happened. I would have lost my job anyway after 9/11 because my agency basically shut down. So, you know, again, because I was proactive in studying about my industry, I knew that something was coming. So again, I'm just trying to point out to you that it's very important to be aware of the profession and then be aware of this as an industry. You know, so it's, you know, you need to be aware of your surroundings. So anyway, so fast forward to, you know, I finished up my degree, and right out of my bachelor's, I get a job at Baker & Taylor. And some of you may be familiar with Baker & Taylor. They're basically a book reseller. They also do library cataloging and management. My first day on the job, they plunked the giant AACR2 cataloging manual on my desk and said, here, learn this. And it's a course in library school. I don't know if you all have had it yet. But rather than having the class, I just had to teach myself the cataloging. So I was at Baker & Taylor, and I very quickly learned that this thing called an MLIS degree existed. You know, how many of you had no idea an MLIS degree even existed before you enrolled? So basically, I read into it. I looked up information about it, talked to my coworkers, and basically they just said to me, well, if you're going to go anywhere in this profession, you need this. So talked to my husband, and it was like, all right, let's get you started. So that brings me to my other point is, I just want to reiterate that a good support system is going to be helpful for your professional success. You probably already realize this, you know, you want a support system while you're in library school, but it's also helpful as you're job hunting, you know, as you're trying to figure out what it is that you want to do. And that doesn't have to be a husband or a wife. It can be just a friend or any relative, just anyone. Just, you know, try to have someone in your corner, you know, who aligns themselves with, you know, with your goals, because you really need a support system. And I think that's something that's often overlooked as far as advice goes. I think that it's really important to have someone in your life that it can be a sounding board and you can talk to, because you might get a lot of job rejections, and that can be difficult. So just, you know, try to, you know, identify someone in, you know, just mentally of, well, who's your support person who's going to help you through, you know, you getting that first job, you know, post-graduation. So after getting my library degree, I wound up taking a part-time temporary job at QVC. Yes, that's QVC, the you know, television shopping channel. They're headquartered in the Philadelphia area. And the reason why I mention that is because if you had told me that I was going to take, you know, when I was out of work, that I was going to accept a part-time temporary job, I would have thought you were crazy, because I was, like everybody else, looking for full-time employment. So I mention this because sometimes you need to take something out of the ordinary in order to get onto your path of extraordinary. And that's exactly what happened to me. The skills that I learned in 6 months at QVC landed me a job at a private law firm, a job that I would not have been qualified the year before to get. And the reason why this job was available is that someone went on family leave. It was part-time at first, and the woman went into labor early, so lucky me. That I was only part-time for a week, and then the next Monday it got to be like 10:30, and everybody kept saying, "Where's Beth? Where's Beth?" And then turns out Beth went into labor a lot earlier than they were expecting. So I remember the supervisor said to me, "Hey, guess what? You're full-time as of now." So, not only was it financially beneficial because then I was in the position of being an independent contractor, so I was able to earn more money at that job than I would have maybe even like a full-time job. But I knew it had a shelf life. I knew it had 6 months. So you know what? I got into everything that I could. I went to the different departments within the Library and Research Services. Can I help you with that? Can you show me that? Be a sponge. Absorb everything. So what happened, I knew that the time was coming to an end. The person came back from leave. They held me on a little longer, but basically just said, we are creating that full-time position, and we really want you for it, but it's going to take us a year to do this job cycle. And they actually said to me, well, can you just hang out and temp for a year so you can post for this job? And yeah, that's not really feasible. So, but what happened was this job opened up at a private law firm, and that's actually, when I was in library school, what I wanted all along. And ironically, people tried to talk me out of it. People, oh, you don't want to work for a law firm. Oh, you need a law degree. And actually, let me take a quick side note here. Here's the first of many tangents I'm going to go off on. When I was in library school, I just really wanted to be involved with law somehow. And everyone kept talking me out of it. No, you need a law degree. Let me just put it there now. You do not need a law degree to be a librarian at a private law firm. A law school, that's a different story. Law schools, and again, that's not every single position, but most law schools, that's one of the requirements. But at a private law firm, like where I am, and I have been at 2 of them now, there's typically one person on staff who has that dual JD and Maleeff degree, and everyone else will be subject specialties. So again, the reason why I was hired is when I was at QVC, I did a lot of patent research. I actually did some legal research. If somebody wanted to sell a product on QVC, I would be given the product. I'd have to see if anybody was sued, if anybody filed a lawsuit against it, if they claimed to own the patent, were they telling the truth. So, I mean, those are skills that were easily transferable to the law firm. So, anyway, my point is that you don't need to have a law degree, because the joke is that's what associates are for. They bring the associates in to, the associates do the high-level, legal research. And then the librarians are the subject specialists. So, again, just tangent over, I just wanted to clear that up, that that was something I always wanted to do. Everyone tried to dissuade me. Once you get to know me, you know that I'm kind of stubborn, and it's what I wanted to do. But again, like I said, I had to do something out of the ordinary to find my path to extraordinary, because, I got there eventually, right? And I didn't realize that my path was going to go through QVC, but, opportunities are going to come up that you might not be able to see the end result, but, learn everything you can, and in my case, things worked out. I'm going to talk a lot more about SLA later, so I won't really get into too much of that. And I already told, correct me if I'm wrong, I already told the Library Sherpa origin story. Just a quick ending of that is when I changed firms, on my current firm, I remember asking my new boss if it was, okay if I blogged and used my name and used the firm's name. And when I asked her about, was it okay if I used the firm's name, her response was, yeah, just make sure they spell it correctly, which is, the answer you want to hear. So, all right, so at this point, did I miss any questions? Do we have any questions or anything you want me to touch on before we move on?
if anybody has any questions, maybe you can raise your hand, or you can type something in the chat. If not, we can move on. Grace and I can start collecting questions from the chat as well for Tracy later if you'd like to. It's a very interesting story about your firm and the ability to blog and use the firm's name, because I know that you're not the only one who's in that boat, but that's actually something that librarians need to be aware in general, that each company may have a different policy on that. So that's a really good safety tip.
Exactly. Yeah, and actually on my blog and my Twitter profile, I do not list the name of my firm. Now it's easy, I mean, I put it here, but it's easy enough to just, Google me and find out where I work. But it's important, I don't have it blatantly on my material. Because again, you don't want to imply endorsement or representation or anything. And actually, I tweet as my law firm library. We have Dwayne Morris LIB, which is the law firm library's Twitter account. And if you may not know this about law firms. Law firms are historically very slow to adapt technology, and in this case, Twitter was technology. It took a while for me to finally get permission to actively tweet publicly. We just had an account set up, to monitor things. But again, you have to prove. The reason I'm telling you this is I proved myself as being trustworthy because my boss saw my Library Sherpa account. Because I keep my Library Sherpa account as maybe like 80-20 professional, personal, and the 80 being professional. I do some personal things, but again, I don't tweet anything that I wouldn't stand up at a conference with a microphone in my mouth and shout out. That's kind of how I judge. If I'm about to tweet something, I can run that scenario through my head, or something I would say to my boss. If I wouldn't say to my boss something that I would tweet, then you shouldn't tweet it. My opinion is that you shouldn't tweet it. So that's why she was able to see my account, know that I was trustworthy, and do that. So again, that's a perk of my job that I brought on myself, because I initiated that whole process of, hey, I like doing Twitter. I want to do a Twitter account. I want to get paid for doing Twitter at work. So what do? I came up with the idea of creating my own account. She was able to, verify my references. Oh yeah, you check out. Okay, go ahead. So I get to tweet at work and get paid for it. So sometimes you have to make your own luck, but as far as social media goes, make sure that you're trustworthy, because what else are they going to base it on, And that doesn't mean that you're not allowed to have a private life, but then don't use your real name. I know plenty of law firm librarians who have a protected account and use an alias. I know so many of them who do that because they don't want to do what I do. They don't want to have any professional stuff posted, and that's fine. That's their prerogative. But you know what? They play it smart. They use an alias, and they lock those tweets down, and they still have fun with it. So decide what you want to do and do that. So, all right, let's see. Okay, so this is like my favorite slide here. Okay. All right, so I hate to break it to you, but technically, the Master of Library Information Science degree does not make you a librarian. And I say technically because there is not, to the best of my knowledge, any official professional certification or designation or license to legally be a librarian. For example, it's illegal to misrepresent yourself as a doctor or a lawyer because that requires, the proper licensures and certifications. Now, I'm not telling you this to bum you out. I'm telling you this to inspire you because I don't want you to limit yourself. So why is Liam Neeson staring at us menacingly? Well, it's because I want you to remember that an MLIS degree gives you, and my apologies to Liam Neeson's accent, a particular set of skills. So you're not getting, you're not becoming stamped with being a librarian. You're getting a particular set of skills to use. So that means when you look for jobs, you want to look for things that say knowledge manager, information analyst. Don't be wary or shy away from things that do not mention library or librarian. You have the skills. and don't overlook something just because, you know, the L word isn't mentioned. And this is something that I can get into a little bit later, but you know, there's a big controversy in the library world at times of, you know, why do I have to use the L word? And it can be very polarizing. From my experience, a rule of thumb, it kind of feels like academic librarians and public and school librarians are very much still attached to the word librarian, and that's fine, because you know what happens when I tell people that I'm a librarian? Unless I say at a law firm, they think I'm a public librarian. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's not what I do, because I don't think the general public is aware that there's this whole wide information science arena. So it's, you know, it's tricky. So basically, you know, figure out what you want to be called. Don't let anyone, you know, dictate to you that you should be called, you know, a librarian and not an info pro or an information scientist or a data scientist. You know what, figure out what works for you, and what I've been telling people for a while is just be the best professional that you can be, and everything else will fall into place. You know what, you figure out what you tell people. You figure out what you want to tell people what you do. Tell them you're a spy for all I care. You know, just be the best professional that you can be, and it just makes our whole field look good. All right. So let's talk about networking. I love networking. All right, so I can't really do a show of hands or anything here, but how many of you have business cards or what people call calling cards? If not, you should have them. I actually just wrote a blog post for April on the INALJ website, all about, you know, how to job search on a budget. So I'll draw so shameless plug there. I will refer I'll talk about some of the things that I mentioned there. So, for example, calling cards. You know, even if it just says MLIS student at San Jose State University, that's fine. You want something to be able to give out to people. There's places like new.com. They're a little bit more pricey, but Vistaprint is, I mean, you can get, I think it's something ridiculous like 100 cards for $8. So it's not expensive. And what you can do with these little calling cards is you can put your social media on it. You know, you can put your, you know, your anticipated date of graduation. Because if you're, you know, if you meet someone and you're out, you want to be able to give them something. You know, again, it's a business card. You want, oh, thank you, Basha, you saw my post. So, you know, you want to be able to have some sort of card. You know, how much you spend on it is up to you. There's a variety of ways to do it, but I strongly encourage that, because you never know when you're going to chat up someone who maybe, you know, works at Google, for example, and, you know, you're really interested in as a systems librarian, and, you know, you want to be able to say, like, you know, hey, can I email you my resume? You know, here's my card, may I have yours? And again, I'll get into more ways of networking, but I wanted to talk about that. Professional headshot. If you guys saw the first slide, you saw my smiling face. I actually only had that done last Saturday, and I used a Groupon. So I used to think that headshots were really, really expensive, because if you know, Google, you know, headshots in your area, you'll see these photographers who will gladly charge you $200, $300, $400, $500 for headshots. You could do that if you wanted, but you could also get a Groupon or any other, you know, social media coupon of that ilk, and for $20 I got one pose, and they took a ton of photos, so I was able to pick one, and I got it digitally. And actually, funny story, they gave me a 16 by 20 printout, which is pretty huge, so I have this weird like dictator kind of looking photo that I don't know what I'm going to do with. But the bottom line is, for $20 I was able to get a professional looking photo that I uploaded to my social media. You know, I used it for this. You know, if you write things, you know, you put your photo out there, because again, you want to get not only your name but your face. You want to get yourself out there and present it professionally, because, you know, you need to present yourself. So I wanted to mention that, because don't think that they're cost prohibitive, because it's $20. You can, you know, it's easy enough to get that done. And I highly discourage the selfie and things like that. Just get a professional headshot, because again, you're investing in yourself. So invest in yourself, and again, it'll all fall into place. If you do not already have a LinkedIn, get a LinkedIn account. LinkedIn is kind of like the professional Facebook. I'm kind of joking about that. It's more professionally geared. So you want to have a LinkedIn account. It's where you throw your resume up there. You throw your volunteer experience. You throw things up. You can feel free to check out my account. I have photos up there. I think I have a video posted of something. I think from the award ceremony last year. I have all kinds of stuff on there. I have any volunteering, things like that, and you want to connect with people. It's just a great site. It's just generally, do people know what LinkedIn is?
Tracy, can I ask you a question here?
Anyone wants to answer? Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, go ahead.
You mentioned business cards and LinkedIn. How do you feel? Do you feel that business cards still have a place in the time of LinkedIn, or is that a little bit?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because when you go to conferences or meet people in person, you want to hand them something. I just went to a Women in Tech event about 2 weeks ago, and cards were still being handed out. I mean, yeah, because what happens is when you go back home or back to your office, one of the first things you should do is connect with all those people. Send emails out and connect with them. So how, I guess, are you saying maybe like as opposed to just standing there with your smartphone and looking them up and stuff?
No, not at all. I personally carry business cards with me and I collect them as well. But every once in a while, I think that maybe that's a little bit of an old-fashioned approach. So you have a lot more experience in them. Where basically I wanted to. Yeah, no, I don't see cards dying out at all. I really don't. Now, there are some people who might put a QR code on their card just so that you can, just scan something and go. Honestly, I don't see that very often because I don't know. I don't think QR codes ever really like hit a nerve with people. I don't really see them much anymore. But yeah, I really don't see business cards dying out. And it's also how you enter contests when you go to annual conferences. So you want to win fancy prizes. So they serve good needs. The big thing that I want to talk about networking, and like I said, I'm going to bounce around a little bit here because I have some more slides I want to make sure I touch upon. But the biggest thing I want to say about networking is it's not a personality trait. It is a hard skill. And I don't mean hard as in difficult, I mean hard as opposed to soft. It's something that, you have to learn, you have to practice, you have to hone. Personally, I really do not like the words introvert or extrovert when it applied to networking, and I'll tell you why. I feel like just using the excuse of I can't network because I'm an introvert is a crutch. It is a crutch to prohibit you, or it's an impediment for you to network. I think people just use it as an excuse, and it's a skill that you have to practice. And then conversely, extrovert, I think some people like to use extrovert as an excuse for bad behavior. If someone's being rude or aggressive or something, oh, well, I'm an extrovert. No, you're rude. Is what you are. Extroverted people can be polite. So I don't disagree that the words, are necessity in, say, psychology, but I don't like them used in terms of networking. Case in point, myself, I network a lot, and yes, sometimes it gets overwhelming and exhausting, but that's why at the end of an SLA annual conference, I'm pretty spent. But it's because I've been working that networking muscle, in my brain. It's a skill that you have to utilize, but it's excellent. I mean, the people I have been able to meet by just, going up and talking to people has been magnificent. So,
what I want to do here, so this is, let me show you the next slide. So speaking of that, all right, so this, let me read you this quote. The currency of real networking is not greed but generosity. There's been a lot of backlash lately. Not saying who, I'm thinking the millennial generation. I'm not picking on anyone, but I just think I've seen articles that the millennial generation feels that networking is makes them feel slimy. I think is actually the title of the article. That means they're doing it wrong. Networking is not about what somebody can do for you. It's about what you can do for someone else. And that's something to remember. And I want to explain the photos I have up here before I keep talking. So I have two different generations of references here because I'm assuming there's an age range. So if you guys are familiar with How I Met Your Mother, you know, Barney would often, deflect women to Ted and say, "Have you met Ted?" One way to survive networking is to have a wing person. Have someone go around with you to all those parties that you're legitimately invited to at the annual conferences. Go around in pairs, or three of you go around as a group. Again, so that you're not, if you're concerned or self-conscious, because again, you can deflect to someone else. If you're uncomfortable talking to someone because they have a weird personality, just have you met Sasha. You can utilize that technique for networking as well. And then the one on the right is from Animal House, which is actually my favorite form of networking, which is just walking up to people, thrust out your hand and say, "Hi, Eric Stratton, Rush Chairman, say I'm glad to meet you." That's actually my preferred method. Now, whichever you prefer, it's crucial that you just get out there and network in person. And, I'm talking a lot about our industry events, the SLA events, the chapter events, division events, the annual conference. That's really where you're going to find, your people. But it's good to practice these skills too. If you go to a religious event, for example, if there's like a networking thing or like a coffee afterwards or something like that, you can practice there. You can practice pretty much anywhere. But I know that some people still aren't convinced and think it's just a personality thing. But I assure you that I wasn't always as outspoken, all of my life. There was a period of time when I remember I really had to force myself to say things out loud that I was thinking. And this was in high school. And I remember that when I actually said things out loud, I made people laugh. I had funny things running around my head. So that kind of surprised me, like, oh, people are laughing at my jokes and I have funny observations. So that encouraged me to continue talking and meeting people. So it's the same sort of thing, that you're going to meet people that can help connect you with something professionally that's going to help you. Because again, a good networker figures out how they can help you. That's the kind of relationship you need to have. And I wrote a blog post, which I think I linked later in the slides. Cultivate your network like a garden. Again, it's important not to go to the well too many times. You don't want to keep bugging the same person. They talk about crops. You leave one fallow 1 year and you rotate the crops. You kind of need to do that with your network. If there's someone you're going to a lot, you might want to leave them alone for a while. Kind of switch it up and go to other people. And if you're wondering what I mean, is like just sending emails to check in with them. Maybe contact them through LinkedIn. Just say, hey, how's it going? What are you up to? If you see they had an announcement, see they had a new job, maybe that's you take the opportunity to reach out. Oh, I see you got a new job. Can you tell me about it? What are you learning? What can you tell me about it? My link is right there. Create a network. The other link I listed, 7 Reasons Networking Can Be a Professional Development Boot Camp. I thought that was a good article. Professional development, networking, all this is intertwined. So that's why that's all there. So it's things that you need to do. So the other thing that I wanted to mention, again, because I know that a lot of people think that this just comes easy for me because I've heard it, and I've heard it enough by now. I need to psych myself up, like anyone else, to go into a room full of people and network, because yeah, sometimes I just want to sit in the corner with a gin and tonic and just, you know, mind my own business. But, you know, I'm dedicated to my profession and being a professional, and it's what I want to do. I do like it, but, you know, sometimes you just want to kind of hang out. But, you know, the connections you make are just invaluable. And I can give you some examples of that in a second. But anyway, so what I do is I channel Oprah. And what I do is I walk in with the mindset, I don't pretend that I'm Oprah. I just extract Oprah's energy. And it's basically like I'm going, you get a business card, you get a business card, you get a business card, everybody gets a business card. And that's what, you know, that's what's helped me get through these rooms. Is, you know, again, not pretending I'm Oprah, but just kind of channeling that energy and that enthusiasm and that excitement, because then all of a sudden it just turns back into me again. Like, okay, then, so it's just like a jump start. So you may also channel Oprah. I do not have the market. I'm not Gail. I do not have the market on Oprah. But pick someone or some circumstance, or even if there's a song that you want to listen to get yourself amped up. Like I said, everybody needs to do it. And I want to make sure that I tell you that I have to do it. I have to get myself spiked up too, so there's no shame in it. And you know what? Once you're turned on, once you get that jump start, then you're ready to go. And then remember, it's all about following up and, you know, maintaining those connections. It's a give and take relationship. You know, it was really sad for me to see all those articles coming out fairly recently about being down on networking, and just my response to those people is, well, you're not doing it right. So if you do it right, it is a healthy give and take relationship. I read something recently that there's basically a law of thirds with networking. A third of the people you'll meet, you'll just hate. A third of the people you meet, you will be able to do something for them. And another third, and the last third of the people that you meet, they'll be able to do something for you. So keep that in mind that, you know, you're not going to click with everyone that you meet. So, you know, it's okay to not follow up with someone if you don't, you know, have any sort of good relationship with them, because you're just wasting each other's time. And just, you know, think to yourself, okay, there's that 1/3, and move on. So a couple examples of networking is, and how it benefited me is I was fortunate enough to go to some international law librarian conferences. I met a lot of United Kingdom-based librarians. So one day at work, my boss tells me that my firm is opening up an office in Oman, which is in the Middle East. And, well, we actually met with the partner who was opening up the office and my library director, and he just looks at me and he's just like, okay, well, I need a full library, you know, ready to go in Oman. And it's like, huh? And you're like, nope. You know, how do I build, you know, a library from scratch that deals with Omani law and things like that? So he happened to mention to me, he's like, well, you know, these firms, and he named 3 firms, London-based firms, all have offices there. You know, maybe you can find out what they did. And I smiled, and I said to my boss and this partner, I said, you know what? I know librarians at all 3 of those firms. I'm going to reach out to them. So I reached out to those 3 librarians that I knew in London, and as it turns out, that one of them, her own boss, was the person from her firm who created and opened their Oman library 10 years ago. She just sent me their entire collection. She just printed it off their catalog, just sent me everything, and said, there you go. And it took like a day or 2. I walked into my boss's office and said, okay, got it. I got a core collection. We're good. I'm just going to start buying stuff now. And I made very clear, made sure it was very, very clear to my boss that that was an SLA connection. That was SLA networking, and it's now just sort of the joke between my boss and myself. Like, she just kind of, if something comes up, she's just like, you just know someone, right? You can just do that. And that's usually the case. I had to buy a book the other day. Again, it was London-based. Our London office wanted something, and my boss asked me a question. Before she could even finish the story, I'm like, yeah, I know a guy. I'm like, yeah, I got it. I know a guy. Again, SLA. It's just SLA networking. It's 2 things. So, I mean, it's SLA on the one hand, but it's also just networking, getting yourself out there, maintaining relationships. But I also do stuff for people too. You know, I give back to people. I pay it forward, so it all just balances out. Oh, and I wanted to tell, wow, this hour's gone quickly. I wanted to tell my what not to do story. So I went to the ALA midwinter, I guess it was last year when I was here in Philly, and I went to the University of Pittsburgh reception, and I purposely sat at a table with all students and made a point to engage them all and, you know, talk to them and I gave them all my business card, and I encouraged them to get in touch with me, and I talked to them. I think not a single person from that table contacted me. And, you know, sorry, hashtag fail. That was, you know, a big, big fail. I mean, I made it clear. I told them, hey, I went to Pitt. This is, you know, I told them the abbreviated version of my story and everything, and just a single one did not reach out or anything. And it was disappointing. So, you know, they blew a huge opportunity. And it was unfortunate. So, you know, again, if you're in a situation where you go to an event, you know, and someone gives you a card and tells you to connect with them, you connect with them. That's what you do. So that is my story of what not to do. All right, let's move on here. Hopefully you know what these two logos are. If you don't, you know, that's oh, I see a question, sorry. Seema wrote, you can think someone who might be high profile won't actually be responsive or you don't bother. But Seema, I understand what you're saying. Well, thank you for calling me high profile. I don't think I am, but I was very clear that I gave them my card and, you know, and told them to reach out to me and to connect with me. I mean, I couldn't have been more clear about it, and they dropped the ball. I understand what you're saying, and I think it would have been different if maybe they had asked me for my card. You know what I'm saying? But I was very, you know, clear that I wanted them to contact me because, hey, I'm a fellow student, I want to help, and just no response. But I see what you mean. Yeah, I mean, if it's different, I think if you approach someone, then, you know, yeah, you might be shy to do so. But again, if someone is telling you to contact them, you contact them. So Twitter and LinkedIn. So I have some links here that I think are good. You know, I read through these. I think they're good for helping them to find a job. Let me look at my notes real quick. So if you're familiar with Twitter lists, if not, go into Twitter's help and look it up. Twitter list. Create a Twitter list and set up a bunch of accounts that will tweet out jobs, either SLA chapters or SLA itself, companies, if there's a company or a library that you want to work at or in a geographic area that you're looking at, throw all these Twitter handles onto a list so that you can just kind of see in one chunk, you know, what they're tweeting out, because they're most likely will tweet out jobs, especially if it's, like I know SLA Pacific Northwest chapter, their Twitter handle is specifically like SLA PNW jobs or something like that. Their Twitter handle is specifically for jobs. So that's the kind of thing that you want to do. Again, utilize your social media as a mix of personal and professional if you are comfortable with that. I feel like that I am, and I do it. So decide what you want it to be. And if you want it to be personal, lock it down, because, you know, the first thing that employers seem to do anymore is to look you up on social media. So, you know, lock things down and change your name. Another way to network with people through social media, there's a lot of people that I haven't met in real life, but I know them really well through social media. You know, Twitter chats are a good way to get to know people. You get to see what people think about things. You get to see their ideas. Shameless plug for SLA Talk. Oh, thank you, Basha, for putting that link up. I created the SLA Talk Twitter chat series, which you guys, SJSU, did back in November. INLJ chat, you guys probably already know that. UK Live chat is a great chat that happens the first Tuesday of every month usually. And it's United Kingdom based, but again, it's a great way to network internationally, and also just to get to see different perspectives. I know LibChat is popular. I don't follow LibChat because I think it's more public librarian based, and that's not what I do. MedLib is one that is medical librarian based. So again, all these things actually here. Let me copy this real quick. There we go. Those are the ones I just mentioned. Those are the big ones in my opinion. Oh yes, and sorry, another shameless plug. So May 27th at 3 p.m. Eastern, SLA Talk is going to be all pre-conference stuff. So even if you're not attending, though, you can kind of hear about the sessions that are going on and things like that. So please attend. Another good way to network with people over social media is live tweeting from a conference or an event. If you go to, say, an SLA Philadelphia event or SLA San Francisco Bay event, and you live tweet the event, or if you go to a conference, you're going to get followers from live tweeting because people will see you and you'll get retweeted. Again, another way to identify thought leaders and people that you want to connect with is a lot of times I personally will tweet out a hashtag for a conference. Like right now, I know that the Canadian Association of Law Libraries conference is going on, and their hashtag is if you know a conference is going on, follow the conference. See who's tweeting. See the sort of things they're tweeting, because you can pretty easily tell from Twitter who knows their stuff, who can succinctly form an idea, and who's just tweeting about free ice cream in the exhibit hall. So again, add them to a list, follow them. Oh, thank you, Sina, for putting a Twitter handle out there. Yeah, there's a lot of Twitter handles too that'll be about jobs. I apologize because I'm not really job hunting right now. I'm a little rusty on which accounts to follow, but again, there's things out there, and there's that one article specifically talked about even hashtags to follow that'll help lead you to jobs. And you may be noticing that there's some social media that's missing from here. Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, Tumblr. Personally, this is just my opinion, I don't feel that those are valuable for professional networking and job hunting. For me, Facebook is more private and personal. I don't like to connect with the world. For Facebook, and even if I do, I have different levels of privacy settings set up. I haven't really heard any arguments for the otherwise. I mean, Facebook's kind of iffy. Personally, I think I'd rather keep my Facebook separate. But I mean, I'm sure there's probably like job hunting groups on Facebook. So again, use your discretion. If you want to keep Facebook, off your social media grid as far as professional stuff goes, then do that. I see no problem in that. We are getting to the end here. Okay, mentoring. I have some quotes here that I wanted to share. So the way I look at it, you all are future mentors. You are going to mentor someone in the future. So I mentor definitely one person. I kind of unofficially mentor a lot of people, but I have one dedicated mentee, and this is how that came about. I gave my speech as chair of SLA's Legal Division in 2012 in Chicago, and Christine came up to me right after my speech, and she just said, to me that, oh, your speech is great, and I just really want to get more involved with the Legal Division, but I don't know what I can do. I don't know what skills I have, but I just really want to get involved. And I took her card, I gave her my card, and I said, you know what, that's terrific. Let's follow up after the conference. And I got to know her a little bit, and I honestly saw a lot of myself in her. So finally, just one day, I kind of called her out of the blue and was like, it was kind of like a marriage proposal. I was just like, will you let me mentor you? And she accepted, and it's been a year for us. And I touch base with her every quarter, and I'll usually give her some, assignments ahead of time. But it's been a really rewarding experience, and it's just something that I enjoy doing, and it's something that you will do eventually. Right now I know that you're looking for mentors. So how do you get a mentor? Well, I told you I started Dr. Team on purpose, because she didn't realize that she was doing it at the time, but she was proactive and came up to me and let herself be known. And again, if you're lucky enough, that person you talk to and give your card to may just, see something in you that they want to mentor you. Don't ask, don't get. You can just ask someone, to be a mentor. And even short of mentor, because mentoring is a commitment and is a relationship. So again, if someone turns you down to be a mentor, don't take it personally. In my opinion, it's just a sign that that person you asked takes it very seriously and wants to give it the time that it deserves. So they may say no because they didn't have the time. Short of getting a full mentor, you could also just ask for informational interviews. If you spot, as Steve used the phrase high profile, if you spot a high profile person that you just like to get to know more about what they do, ask them, reach out to them, connect with them through LinkedIn or Twitter, and ask, could I possibly have 15 minutes of your time for a phone call and to ask you some questions? And most people will say yes. Yes, you can have some of my time, and that's how things happen. So I kind of call it, micro mentoring. I'm just making that up now. I guess I should trademark it. That if you can't forge a solid mentoring full-time relationship, again, ask people, if they have time for for an email, for a question, for a phone call, things like that, and then you'll find someone. Again, an association like SLA will be helpful. The Leadership and Management Division is being very proactive with trying to match up mentors. But again, the onus is on you partly to seek one out, and I also tell a lot of my peers that parts of the responsibility is on us to reach out to new professionals. So we will meet in the middle and do that. Grace and Basha, we're going to go over a little bit. Is that okay?
I think so. I appreciate your willingness to do so. If people can stay, that would be great. If you have other commitments, we understand. But yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, sorry, I keep going here. I told you I have a lot to say. Okay, so professional development. So how, hopefully you recognize this as being really big. So how do you get from being 12-year-old Josh in an ill-fitting suit to the Tom Hanks version of Josh? So, once you network and you use Twitter to land that job after doing a part-time job to get your skills, and then you get this amazing full-time job, how do you stay afloat? There's some famous quote by Linton Weeks about, librarians, in this age, librarians are the ones who give us floaties and help us swim in this, tsunami of information. Well, I wrote an article a long time ago about, the librarian is drowning, based on that quote, because that quote puts a lot of pressure on the librarians to help service everybody else in this time of the information age of staying afloat. Well, who's helping the librarians stay afloat? So don't be a drowning librarian. You need to keep abreast of things in our industry, in your field. If you go into something specialized, like to be an engineering librarian, you need to stay sharp on skills. So continuing education can be anything from, taking a day-long class that's a part of an annual conference, to a MOOC, to attending conferences, to attending instructional sessions, to finding things online from reputable resources. And I will share my own professional development that I've been going through lately. My last birthday hit me kind of hard, and I really had a look at my career and my professional development and kind of thought, well, where am I going? I know where I've been, so where am I going, and what do I want my future to look like? So I decided that I wanted to rekindle something that has long been dormant in my brain, and that's more hard tech skills. I decided that I really want to learn some more hard tech skills and be more tech savvy, and I'm talking like hardcore tech. Like I'm learning SQL right now. I took, I wouldn't call Drupal hardcore, but I took a Drupal day-long seminar the other day. But no, I'm all about databases right now. So I'm learning SQL, learning coding, and that's what I love it. And again, this is something that, maybe 20 years ago I was really into, I was into, but just never pursued it for, whatever reason. But I'm not stopping learning, and neither should you. So that's just something that I wanted to share, that, you need to pick up, you always need to be learning. And like I said, don't become complacent, because our profession, our industry is, I should say industry, but our profession is, is constantly changing, and how you can barely go a day without reading some article about the death of a librarian. There was something I tweeted actually yesterday. Some study tried to say that librarians are going to be replaced by robots. I'm not joking. It was some whole study that was done that, librarians are going to be replaced with robots. Well, the article was kind of skewed, and the author who wrote the summary really kind of misquoted the data, because I went in and I looked at the data. So, if you're familiar with the story of Chicken Little, the sky is falling, I feel like that's basically librarianship, like every day. There's always some sort of sky is falling moment. So you know what? Don't get caught up in the hype. Just keep your skills sharp. Just keep moving. Be a shark. Keep moving. Don't be still. My next two slides are just kind of decorative, so I'll just stay on this slide. So you wanted to hear about the day in life of a private law firm librarian, and I apologize I'm not giving this a lot of time. It's really not going to look like a librarian job, and I'm using air quotes here. It really kind of looks like a corporate job. I go in, I have an office, and I have email, and I look at my email constantly, and I deal with contracts, I deal with vendors. I mean, basically what I do is I'm a liaison between the library's reference staff, the library's technical staff, the attorneys, and then all the, support staff, like the secretaries and the legal assistants and paralegals. And then another spoke is the outside people, the vendors and things like that. So basically, I'm in the middle, and I have all these spokes, and I am a liaison to all of them. So I don't really deal with books. I deal with books as far as assigning them to people and stuff, but I don't really physically touch books. And that, to be honest, that's kind of what most private law firm jobs look like. And if you're on the reference side, because I did that at my old firm, again, you are just at your computer doing, research and reference all day. You may connect a patron with a book, but and the reason why I'm just mentioning this is because I think that some people are of the mindset of the traditional librarian, and I'm just trying to, whatever that is anymore, but just to really just emphasize that, a private law firm is a business. It's like a corporate environment, and to me, that's a positive. To be honest, I mean, I really like being in an office environment. I love working for big law. Big law meaning, the better off firms. I mentioned the AmLaw 100. The American Lawyer magazine ranks the law firms from 1 to 100 based on their wealth, basically. My firm comes in at number 70. So I work at what's called big law, and honestly, I love it. So, but if that's not for you, if working in a corporate environment isn't for you, and you really want the smell of old books, and you want to be in one of those beautiful libraries that I constantly see links floating around of, look at the world's most beautiful libraries, just know what you want. Know what you want out of a library environment. I hear a lot of people say to me, I can't believe you work with lawyers all day, and if it's a public librarian, I can't believe you work with the public all day. I'm very fortunate at my firm that we have a quote-unquote no jerk policy, that the attorneys are basically, of the understanding that, we're all professionals together. So I feel like the library is very well respected. I feel like that I'm respected. I told you today that I had an attorney reach out to me and asked me for help with Twitter, and he actually was referred to by a partner. This was an associate who reached out to me. There was a partner who knows that I'm good at Twitter and specifically, knew my name and referenced me. Another good example of, if you're good at your job, good things happen. The COO of the Chief Operating Officer of my firm, this was actually when I, about a year into the firm, called me by name in the hallway. Now, if you're in a corporate environment, sometimes you just think, you're just another, cog, and nobody knows who I am, and I'm just nameless person running around. Well, he greeted me in the hallway by my name, and I remember being very excited. I went to the library director, and I said, he just called me by my name. And she said to me, you're damn right he knows your name. He knows how much money you've saved the firm with your cost savings initiative. So, that was really cool. So again, that's just to further emphasize that, if you do a good job and you're, a good professional, you get professional reputation, you get respect. And I know this is one very segmented point of view. I know that a public librarian life is very different. And I very much admire, those librarians. I cannot do what they do. I could not work with the public all day. I did a shadowing program when I was in library school, and I barely lasted the day in a public library. So, again, if you still have time while you're in your program, I'll get to you 1 second. If you still have time in your library program, do externships or shadowing programs. I did a shadowing program at a public library. I went to a medical library. I went to some sort of specific geriatric studies library. Anywhere anybody would take me, let me in, I would go. And I sampled everything, and even if I didn't like it, I took a medical libraries class when I was in library school. I didn't think that I would like it, but you know what? I just took it anyway to rule it out, because it's, in my opinion, it's easier to, I'm going to use the Yiddish word, fuss. It's easier to fuss around like that before you have a full-time job rather than job hop. And it's better for your career if you don't keep job hopping. So try to explore as much as you can so that you can rule out things. So even if you think you're going to hate it, just go somewhere for the day so you can be like, yep, that's right, I didn't like it. And that's what I thought was one of my keys to success, is because I knew I wanted law the whole time. Everyone tried to dissuade me. All right, fine, I'm going to go and look at all these other types of libraries. And it's like, you know what, you're right, nope, don't like it, don't like it, don't like it. And, then the law thing, came about, and it's like, I'm home. That's where I am. So that is one of those. So, LS, how did I save the money for the film? Okay. Right away, some of it was just basically organization. There were, multiple copies of things that I would identify. I guess, let me give you one really succinct example, is that we had 10 copies of this one book. The book was $1,000. I kid you not, I will not say the name of the publisher, but it was $1,000. And I was like, I want to see what a $1,000 book looks like. So I went and pulled it off the shelf, and I'm looking at it, and because I have a research background, which is kind of where this all comes into play, I spent 2 years as a research librarian at my first firm. I'm looking at this and going, this is online for free. This is a federal resource. 3/4 of this $1,000 book was free online. And then the last quarter of the book was some, unique publication to that publisher. So I drafted up a plan. I said, okay, I'm going to type up a little finding guide to give to all these 10 attorneys of how they could find that material online. And I went and sought out a reasonable facsimile of the same material that would be unique material for $100. So went from spending $1,000 a book to $100 a book. And again, the partners were thrilled because I explained, I was very clear in my notice to them of, look, you own a book that costs $1,000, which most of it is free online. So I'm canceling your book. I'm giving you this $100 book instead, and a list of instructions with links of how to get it. So that's one example. There's just, there's a lot of other things I did, but I think that's one example is, so it's using analytical thinking, know your stuff, know your content. If I didn't know my content, I would not have recognized that as free federal material. So you need to know your stuff and have analytical skills. Question things, think things. Whenever I get an invoice to pay, I automatically do the mathematical calculation for a year-over-year increase. You know, I can just do it quickly now. And if it's a certain percentage that's with outside of our range, I push back on the publisher. You know, and even if I can't get the price down, I get some sort of explanation as to why it increased. But yeah, you need to have really strong analytical skills, and you need to question things, you know, when appropriate, but you need to push back. So again, I think that's some traits that some librarians don't have, but you need to be proactive. And yeah, so a quick funny story is my boss is always amazed about how I'm able to renegotiate things and get things for free and stuff like that. And my boss said to me one day, she's like, how do you do that? I don't understand. Like, how are you able to do that? And I said, I am nice enough that they want to help me, but I'm annoying enough that they want to make me go away, and they give me what I want. So it is a very fine line, but that is something that you can, you know, aspire to hone. That's just something that you again, that goes through networking, because I network with my vendor reps. You know, you need to be able to talk to people and have a relationship with people. So, you know, if there's a Toastmasters or a public speaking course or something, make sure that you have presentation and public speaking skills and just, you know, storytelling skills, chatting skills, because you're going to need those in business. All right. And that's what we already do. I have 3 books here that I highly recommend. Who Moved My Cheese? It's basically dealing about change, because you're going to be dealing with change as you go from library school into the working world. Once you get into the working world, you're going to be dealing with change. There's actually on YouTube, I didn't want to link to it because I don't think it's official, but if you go to YouTube and look at Who Moved My Cheese, there's about a 16-minute video there, but I actually just recommend that you get the book. Kind of like everything, I think you should read the book first and then watch the video. The book really is tiny. It's really going to take you like, oh, good, I see Dr. D mentioned it too. Okay, good, so you guys are reading it. Okay. And the next one is Get the Job You Want Even When No One's Hiring. I heard Ford Myers speak about 2 weeks ago. He gives amazing interviewing advice. Get this man's book. He gives good advice. The one part of his book that I'll tell you to disregard is where he gets into online resources. I gave you better online resources than he did, but everything else was excellent. That was my only beef about his presentation, is his online stuff was a little outdated, but everything else is good. And like, I'll give you one tip. So spoiler alert, I'll give you one tip. He actually gives you a suggestion if you don't get the job. If you don't get the job, what you do is you still follow up with a thank you note, thanking them for the opportunity to interview, and that if they have any other openings in the future, to please think of you. And I know that might sound a little strange, but as he gave a couple examples of, you're being professional, you're maintaining a network, because again, you might cross paths with that person again, and again, you're putting your name back into that person's head. And he gave some specific examples of clients of his who actually were called months later when either the person they hired didn't work out or they decided to hire more people, things like that. So it's really good tips like that you wouldn't necessarily think of that he has in his book. The last one, Rock Your Network for Job Seekers, that's specifically about, about job hunting. Wendy is involved with a group called, it used to be called the American Society of Training and Development. It's now called ATD, which is Association for Talent Development. And they actually, I believe they're atd.org. I could probably look that up real quick. They have training material, which is, no, they're not atd.org, so scratch that, sorry. It's Association for Training and Development, or for Talent Development. So her stuff is good. She's very much about networking and finding jobs and things like that. But looking at any professional associations like the American Management Association and this Training and Development, they're also going to help give you skills, not only for networking, but for presenting yourself and talking to people and handling people. Because if you go on an interview and you're you're asked a hypothetical question about maybe how you would handle something that was like management related, if you familiarize yourself with their articles and things like that, you know, you can draw something from what you read. Because even if you haven't experienced it, because again, that's the point of those questions is what your problem-solving skills are. So if you can sit there in an interview and be like, I read in the Harvard, you know, Business Review that blah, 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 and the Harvard Business Review is a phenomenal resource to look at. You know, you're going to come across really well. So again, I know you probably don't want to hear it because you've already been in school and studying, but you need to keep studying after you graduate. I look at so much stuff on a daily basis because I want to have stuff to talk about. I want to, you know what's going on not only in, you know, the legal world, the library world, but just in management and in training and in tech. But again, you have to love it. I'm investing in myself. I've been able to travel as a result of, you know, of SLA and other things. I've been able to talk to you guys. So again, it's all for a purpose. It all comes together that you need to do this stuff. And lastly, those are my babies, my dogs. So again, I thank you guys so much for listening. I really want to hear some more questions. I'm totally fine to hang out here. But don't hesitate to contact me. I listed my email, my Twitter, my LinkedIn. My blog is just librarysherpa.com. I do want to crank that up a notch a little bit. I've just kind of been reblogging things lately. I'm very busy, so now's a really crazy time for me because we're about to start the SLA conference in about a month. So I'm hoping over the summer I'll have my blog a little bit more active. So let me take a sip here, and please throw some questions at me. I apologize if I missed ones that were sooner, but go ahead. I'm here for questions.
Thank you, Tracy. If anybody has questions, if I could just ask you to raise your hand so we don't all ask at the same time. And before you leave, let me ask you to join our executive committee. There you go. That's right, Tracy. I think that you already have some followers here, so this is among our group.
So I'm curious about so y'all wrote, I hope that I'm pronouncing that correctly. So, well, you said that you're still new to it, so I guess if you can type in the chat box, is there something, oh, good. Is there something specific that I could answer at that maybe, because you said that you're still new to it, is there something that I could maybe help? Are you overwhelmed by it? I hear a lot of people are overwhelmed. I've been on Twitter since it basically started in 2006, I think. My husband and I used to use it as texting. I used to write @Joshing, what do you want for dinner? And then he'd write @Library Sherpa, I don't know, what do you want for dinner? And that was basically our tweets back and forth. Because nobody else was on Twitter.
So Tracy, I was actually our new social media director for the SJSU SLA group, and we were just discussing Twitter the other day. If you have any pointers for her.
Oh, excellent. Well, if you guys want to talk, if you guys want to talk later, I mean, like, you know, some other day about Twitter, definitely get to know Hootsuite. If you don't already, Hootsuite is a wonderful tool. You can program tweets and you can manage things. But yeah, if you guys want to have a separate Twitter conversation, I'm happy to do that.
I see that Rebecca and Seema have questions, so maybe Rebecca can start.
Oh, sure, please. Yep, go ahead.
Hi, thanks, Tracy. I really enjoyed your talk, and it's good to hear from somebody who's from Philly because I'm from the Philly area originally. I missed a little bit in the beginning. I'm sorry if this is a repeat, but I was wondering if you're talking at SLA this year because I'm going to go and I'd like to see you.
Yay. Oh, thank you. Yes, I'm giving a quick peek. Wait, let me look it up. When is it? It's on Sunday. When am I speaking? Yes, I'm speaking twice, actually. Well, I'm also going to be speaking at the opening reception because I'm the chair of the annual conference, so you'll just hear me get to like thank people and stuff, and I need to figure out my walk-on music. I'm doing a quick take on Sunday. I'm pulling it up as we speak because I don't remember the time. Sunday, June 14th at 1:30, I'm doing a quick take, which is a 15-minute session called Legal Resources and Research Using Twitter. And then on Tuesday, June 16th at 2 o'clock, my partner Leslie Hicks and I are presenting a paper called Network Like Nobody's Watching, Demystifying Networking as a Skill for Librarians and Info Pros. So those are the 2 times that I'm actually speaking. Oh, and I'm also going to be speaking at, see, I told you I was really busy, the Fellows and Rising Stars Roundtable. It's going to be some like open panel discussion where you can ask questions and stuff. I'm going to be a part of that panel. And I'll look up when that is.
Thank you.
Yep.
And I think Seema has a question as well.
Yep.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for the talk, Tracy. I am on Twitter. I'm much more of a Twitter lurker than a tweeter, but I was just wondering if you have any, I know we kind of talked about a few different people and organizations to follow, but if you have any other suggestions for who to follow on Twitter, I follow quite a few different list people and organizations, but I'm just wondering if you have any other suggestions.
Sure. I knew this question was going to come up, and I meant to have some names set already. Well, I'm going to look at my Twitter feed real quick, so hold on one second. You know, because right now I'm really into tech, I have a lot of like heavy data science things. Well, I guess it depends on what area of librarianship are you looking at? Because I could also tell you a ton of like legal stuff. What area are you looking at?
I'm also interested in tech and also archives, so I'm kind of pursuing the librarian archivist path. Okay, gotcha. Well, I'm afraid I can't really help you with the archive stuff, but Analytic Bridge, is it's all about big data and everything, but they have and Data Science Central is a good one for like really techie things. Let me give shout out to some of my friends here. So my buddy Zena Applebaum, she talks a lot about competitive intelligence, law firm management, but she also talks about, you know, networking, and she actually does not have, she's going to kill me for saying this, she doesn't have a library degree, but that still does, you know, that makes her an information professional. So she has a really good, and I'm only mentioning that because she has a different perspective on things. So that's why I'm recommending her, is that she's not mired down with a lot of like the librarian baggage that I think some of us deal with. Yes, thank you, Basha. Yes, and follow me. You know what? I'm glad to pull together some other ones. Let me make a note real quick. You said archives and tech. I'll be glad to pull together a list and give it to Grace and Basha to distribute. You know, I feel like another good tech one is The Next Web. It's at The Next Web. Is a good one. And what is Research Buzz, just like it sounds, Research Buzz, B-U-Z-Z. Tara is really good with coming up with with facts and things and what's new. But yeah, I mean, if you guys want to do like a separate webinar just about heavy duty Twitter, I'm down with that. But I guess maybe that must, I don't know, I guess you're at the end of your term, so maybe something over the summer and the fall, but
yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Fall or summer, we could do a more informal session like a chat, so you don't have to feel like you have to present the whole thing. But if you, I know that you have plenty to tell us on the topic, so.
Yeah, so I know I could talk forever about Twitter. Yeah, I really apologize. At the last minute I realized that question was going to come up, and I follow, I don't know. I can't. I follow so many different things, and that's why I wanted to ask what your area was, because I intentionally follow really wide variety of stuff. So I don't want to fill your feed with stuff that doesn't interest you. Like another one, for example, again, because I like to follow like management type of things. Fast Company is a good one. It's just just spelled out, Fast Company. A lot of good management type things and trends and stuff like that. So sorry, I hope that was helpful. Sorry, I knew that question was coming and I meant to be more prepared for it. But I'll be glad to throw something together and give to Grace and Basha to distribute.
I think that would be wonderful, and I just want to remind everybody that this 10:30 where Tracy is right now, so I think why don't we wrap it up now, and since Tracy has been so generous with her time and also has given us her email and has promised to come back and talk to us about Twitter, I think we should just take her up on this and just ask her to come back. Thank you, everybody, for being so engaged. And Tracy, thank you so much for presenting and giving us so much of your evening. We really enjoyed it, and we appreciate it greatly.
Oh, sure. This was great, and I look forward to talking to you guys again. And I think it was Rebecca who's on the call, so definitely make sure you come up to me at the conference. If anybody else is going to be at the conference in Boston, come up and get in my face, because I'm probably going to run around like a chicken with my head cut off, but make sure you grab me. Or be like, hey, I'm Santa Bay State. I listen to you talk. And that'll be great, yeah. So, no, this is super. And, yeah, so, no, thank you guys so much for this opportunity.
Thank you for being so generous. Good night.
Good night. Bye, guys.